280 something
Yes.
like that. It's huge, right? But let's take a step back and kind of like put that into context. What does that tell us in terms of where we're heading in the industry?
I think we have a strong conviction here at Stripe that we are at an inflection in our economy.
You on the fintech side are building something, but do you really think the industry is ready for it, right? Because there's different layers to that.
Yeah, I think right now there's a significant interest from the merchant community to understand and actually like really test out what agentification of commerce means for them.
But then on the consumer side, what are you saying? Because we are also consumer ourselves, right?
AI is going to be, if not, is already the new search.
Yes.
So what was previously desktop research is now more a
Yes.
conversation. I think a lot of the consumers today are doing that. Where the barrier lies right now is the trust to go to the next step, which is essentially giving that agent the autonomy or the ability to make a purchase on my behalf. I'm very inclined to doing it, but I don't expect everybody to be very familiar with that.
There's this added layer of intelligence that can then pull into my wallet and start doing the shopping for me.
Consumer is still very much in control.
Let's get straight into it. Ranjit, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. Doing great. We're excited for an amazing day here at Stripe to London. Looking forward to it.
Same here. And it's always a great moment because it's the time where the leadership announce all the different release, what is shaping the future, and what an opportunity to be able to get you right before the opening. So let's get straight into it. So I know because you guys, I think I've just done the US, you were all kind of like doing the sessions.
Yes.
And I know there's a number of important product release that are being announced. If we step back, because it's 280 something
Yes.
like that, it's huge, right? But let's take a step back and kind of like put that into context. What is effectively the fact that you are going down such an ambitious, roadmap in terms of product delivery? What does that tell us in terms of where we're heading in the industry?
Yeah, I think we have a strong conviction here at Stripe that we are at an inflection in our economy, both economically speaking, from an industry standpoint, and also just geopolitically. We have a strong conviction that we are at the forefront of the economy replatformizing around AI. So all of the services as we know it, we expect them to change, especially within payments and financial services, which you're seeing already with, agentified checkouts, and particularly in the US, where we've gone a little bit ahead with launching self-checkouts on some of the AI labs and agents. So I think we're really at the beginning of that curve now. So a lot of the focus that we have here within Stripe, both from product standpoint and go-to-market standpoint, has been around building for the next generation of payments, money management infrastructure, and just general economic infrastructure around that.
I mean, AI is very much becoming a common topic across all of the event flow stage. We're hearing it. But do you really think the industry is ready for it, right? Because there's different layers to that. So you on the fintech side are building something.
Yes.
Then we need the merchants to somehow get onto the boat, and then you have the consumer. So what's the level of maturity, and how soon are we to effectively really seeing that driving some interesting use case?
Yeah, I think right now there's a significant interest from the merchant community to understand and actually like really test out what agentification of commerce means for them. So this could be a new distribution engine. Some of them are thinking of it in that form. Others are taking that as more as, some experiences enhancement into their own products. So there's different varieties of use cases that we are seeing today. But I think you touched on an important point there, which is around adoption. There's still a significant amount of friction for merchants to be able to adopt. There are a number of AI platforms that have different protocols and different technical standards that may or may not work with existing merchant backend systems. So we've been spending a lot of time at Stripe over the last year or two to build out similar protocols like machine payments protocol and Agentic Commerce Suite to actually help ease that transition. So build out what effectively would be like a translation layer between what the AI agents infrastructure is and what the existing merchants infrastructure is, and act as that connective tissue between the both to actually help them experiment quickly, understand where they found a good fit in their use case, and then obviously monetize on top of that, and then the entire economic infrastructure around it.
Okay. So here we're very much talking about effectively even being seen, right? So having the product and service being available to then being picked on as an intent comes and drive, the purchase towards some of those agents. But then on the consumer side, what are you seeing? Because we are also consumer ourselves, right? Do we actually really need an agent? Because I feel that sometimes, you're on the product side, so it's exciting, right? We kind of like in our own bubble. But if you strip that, I mean, from a consumer, are we kind of like, oh, I want to actually start experiencing and buying with AI? Is it not something that we are trying to create a new behavior because it's the consumer asking, really?
I think we're seeing some of that happen organically. Like one of the things that I keep saying is like AI is going to be, if not is already, the new search. So a lot of the patterns that I see myself do personally as well as people around me is now start to engage with maybe a Google search or a Perplexity or an Anthropic to just go directly and start asking questions. So search has become a bit more conversational. So what was previously desktop research is now more a conversation. So I'll give you a personal example. Like planning a holiday is not my strongest suite. So I rely a fair bit now on some of these chatbots and others to really help me curate what my holiday should look like, where should we go, what should we see, where do we stay. That's, I think a lot of the consumers today are doing that. Where the barrier lies right now is the trust to go to the next step, which is essentially giving that agent the autonomy or the ability to make a purchase on my behalf. Now, as you said, I'm in the field, so I'm very inclined to doing it, but I don't expect everybody to be very familiar with that. That's where I think the power of the existing, AI labs, their brand, and the trust that comes with it is very, very important. We are doing a little bit of that ourselves by trying to deploy our consumer wallet called OneLink here in the UK, which is now effectively almost the wallet for agentic commerce that you can say. So it takes into consideration authentication, consent from customers, as well as provide guardrails and thresholds so that any transaction, then the agent doesn't go rogue and overspend or anything. It's just very, very well defined, and the consumer is still very much in control.
Okay, very interesting. So tell me more then. So you're talking about a wallet. So from a consumer perspective, I now have this wallet that has been designed around these software AI agents component. And in terms of then, as far as I am a customer, so for me, it's like payment method, all of my instruments get stored there, but there's this added layer of intelligence that can then pull into my wallet and start doing the shopping for me. Is that?
You've described it perfectly. Yes, that's exactly right. So it gives your customers the ability to decide when to use it, what to use it for, and how much and to what extent they want to authorize a payment. So I think that's what is important to develop that or overcome the trust barrier, which is a genuine concern. Right? You don't want to give a card to a random agent. We are still coming out of the mindset that bots equals bad in checkouts. So that needs to change, and that is changing quite rapidly. And it starts getting much more nuanced as you go into what does a good actor look like that is non-human versus a bad actor look like. So there's a lot of fraud elements or fraud management elements up front as well. So that's being taken into consideration both in OneLink as well as just generally across Stripe checkouts and all of our services.
And you said the UK is the first market where you are experimenting with this wallet?
No, we have it worldwide.
You do? Okay.
So OneLink has been around for, I think, at least half a decade or so, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
And it started off as a faster checkout option where customers could store their card details and payment details and use that across the Stripe network of merchants. So one merchant, add it on one merchant, spend it on the other, and so on, without having to re-enter information. So it was a success there. And I believe we have about somewhere close to 250 million consumers already using OneLink. So globally, this is the next step of that product, is to really become the agentic wallet for the future.
Okay. Now, if we forget about AI, right? Because that is definitely dominating the trend. How long have you been in the industry, by the way, in the payment side?
About 13, 14 years now.
Okay. We seem to be going in waves, right? Would you
Yes.
agree in terms of like the way the innovation is shifting? Traditionally, I'm also about 15 years into the space. Payment was very much a one box,
Yes.
like it's almost a complementary, service typically held by bank.
Yeah.
Then came the Strives and other disruptors with solutions that offer more flexibility, modularity, etc. So if you think about all the different waves and where we are heading now, what do you think are the fundamental triggers that led us to where we are today? Because the way payment is being shopped about is completely fundamentally different to back in the days where it was like a banked own, offering. Whilst today there's so much more value intelligence. Can you give me your perspective around that?
Yeah, I think payment started off as an afterthought, pretty much something that was considered a bit more utilitarian, just something that works, so didn't have to spend too much time. Even relationships between merchants and their processors were more vendor based. There weren't strategic partnerships as they are today. I think over the course of the last decade or so, I've seen that shift quite rapidly, be it because of Stripe or the gender ecosystem evolving, and also merchants getting much more conscious to the fact that there is optimizations to be had at every point in the payments journey. So everything from fraud prevention, if you're able to identify fraud up funnel, you're able to save a bunch of costs downstream. If you have a seamless checkout, you're obviously going to get way more customers to pay than your competitor. And then downstream as well, your dispute management, to all of that is really starting or has become mainstream now.
That's right.
Like everybody talks about authorization rates and stuff. So it's just standard to just know if you're operating or if you're doing payments for your business, you just know these things now. I think what is shifting now is just going beyond that. I think the intelligence layer, as you put it, I think that's taking a much more front and center view, because merchants are familiar with the downsides of not having a strong fraud prevention system and so on. And now add the agentic layer on top of it. Obviously, there's genuine concern on trying to make sure that their current infrastructure is able to manage and even just detect these new actors. So yeah, a lot of the emphasis that we have on Stripe is also focused on that aspect, to make it very similar to what we've done over the last decade and a half, is just making all of those experiences seamless for the merchant, so that we're abstracting the complexity away from thinking about, which AI lab should I integrate into, what is their tech stack. We are kind of bringing all of that together with the Agentic Commerce Suite. And then we are actually enhancing our radar offering quite a bit, which is our fraud prevention tool, to detect new types of abuses that you're seeing, like free trial abuse, token theft, and stuff that probably 2 years ago nobody thought of. Now is just happening and it's going to become mainstream.
That's right. And you say something really important around the data, because fundamentally, I guess, that becomes the core aspect of payment, right? Understanding how your infrastructure operates, because that's what tells you what needs optimization, what needs, more defense and elements like that. But I feel, at the same time as we're talking about data, but data is not readily available either, right? And so the merchants, without getting the visibility into how, the infrastructure are performing, they're blindsided, or they're guided by a partner like you, right? To effectively somehow cascade, taking the complexity out, because it's not necessarily easy to even understand those data, right? But yet it seems that the data seem to be the next currency, the real next value.
No, I agree 100%. Like everything from fraud prevention to product catalog discovery on agent or agentic surfaces to if we take a step back, we're talking about agentic commerce. The fundamental crux of that is something that is non-human.
Yeah.
Today's checkouts are built for humans. So it's built for you to click through a bunch of stuff, maybe to then decide to purchase or complete your purchase. Agents don't operate that way. They have a complete different view of what needs to happen. And they, ideally within one or maybe two API calls, they should know what they're buying, what they're supposed to be buying, how much does it cost, what other information do they need to provide, and so on. And that leaves merchants with who probably already had a data problem with a much bigger issue to deal with. Because now you need to make your product catalog available online 24/7. You need to have your inventory live as well. Imagine, 500 agents sort of coming onto your checkout and trying to buy some, very in-demand sneaker. Maybe you just have 400. How do you, manage that? So that needs to be live. So it all needs to be API led now for agents to actually interact, and also just generally for systems to interact with each other. And then beyond that, of course, your fraud prevention, you need to be on top of your data. You need to know what's happening and so on. So it does take a fair amount more effort and more people to be able to do it today as compared to maybe what we were doing a few years ago. That's where we're focused on. Most of our products serve a startup that's probably going to be founded in the next 5 minutes to the largest companies that operate or have been operating for decades now. And obviously, there's a big spectrum of users. The ones on the smaller end are probably much more likely to want Stripe to actually take that complexity away, while the larger ones that have their own sophisticated teams and maybe a much more intelligent stack may appreciate the modularity that comes with what Stripe is offering. So we're trying to cater to both ends right now.
And very interesting, because you're right, the starting point, the way I've known and seen Stripe is that easy entry access, but then the merchants grow with you. And it's fantastic that along the journey, the product set also grows and adapts to the demand on the future proof. So I know that you're going to get on stage. The opening is like probably very imminent. I just want to ask you a last closing question. So if you think about the next 5 years, because I think 10 years is probably far out at the pace at which things are evolving, what excites you the most? What do you think that the industry needs to pay attention to now that will really put them in a strong position with regard to where we're heading with the future of commerce?
I think we keep talking about two key trends that are defining our industry as well as the broader economy. One is, of course, the proliferation of AI. Like we're seeing more businesses come online much more easily. The cost of software is going down. And the second one is actually stablecoins. I think the stablecoins in the past, or cryptocurrencies in the past, have gotten a bad rap. But since then, if you noticed what's happening across most parts of the world, they're starting to become a bit more mainstream, particularly around the cross-border use cases where you see a lot more of that now. Like remittance companies, for example, the likes of Zeps here in the UK, are starting to deploy stablecoins as a way to enhance their existing remittance corridors and cross money movement and so on. So there's just a lot happening, both from the way customers interact with commerce as well as how money moves from an infrastructure standpoint. So AI and stablecoins are, I think, going to be quite pivotal to, like, looking back I don't even know if it'll take 5 years.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Thank you so much, Ranjit. I look forward to seeing you now on stage and hearing the rest of the story. Great pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.